What would you do if in the middle of the deadliest snowstorm of the year, something knocked on your door, and when you opened it, a pregnant black panther was standing there? Would you close the door? Or would you risk your life to save hers? This is the story of one storm, one choice, and the night that changed everything. The storm arrived without warning. By sunset, the sky had turned violent gray. By night, the world had disappeared beneath white. Wind tore through the forest like something alive. Trees bent, branches snapped, snow buried the earth. In thick silence, at the very edge of that forest stood a small wooden house. Old, isolated, almost forgotten. Inside lived a man named Elias. He had lived alone for years. His wife had passed during a winter illness. His son had moved to the city and never returned. Now it was just him. And the quiet. That night, even the quiet felt different. The power went out just after dark. The lights flickered once, twice, then darkness swallowed the house. Elias lit oil lamps and built a strong fire. The wind howled down the chimney. The windows shook violently. He wrapped himself in a blanket and stared into the flames. Another long winter, he muttered softly. Then knock. He froze. His eyes slowly moved toward the door. Maybe it was the wind. Another knock. Slower, heavier, deliberate. His heart began to pound. No one would be out there. He stood up carefully, lit his lantern, walked toward the door. The knocking stopped, but then he heard breathing, deep, strained. Right outside, he slowly unlocked the door. The wind exploded into the hallway. Snow rushed in, and there she was. A massive black panther stood at his doorstep, her fur covered in ice, her body trembling violently, her eyes glowing in the storm. Elias stumbled back. He had seen wild animals before, but never like this. Never this close. She didn't growl, didn't attack. She just stood there, struggling to stay upright. Then Ace saw Italiano, her belly round, heavy. She was pregnant, very pregnant. Her sides moved rapidly with every breath. There were faint red streaks in the snow behind her. She had walked far, too far. Their eyes locked. He expected danger. Instead, he saw desperation. She tried to take a step forward. Her legs gave out. She collapsed in the snow, right at his door. The storm immediately began covering her body. Elias stood frozen. If he closed the door, she would die. If he helped her, he might not survive. His mind screamed at him to shut it. But his heart remembered something. Years ago, during another winter storm, he hesitated to get help for his sick wife. The roads were blocked. No one came. He had promised himself if he ever had the chance to save a life again, he would not hesitate. He stepped into the storm. The cold stabbed his lungs. He dragged a heavy blanket outside, approached her slowly. Every muscle in his body tense. He covered her with the blanket. Her fur felt like ice beneath his hands. Then he did something impossible. He slid his arms under her body. He slammed the door shut behind them. The storm roared outside. Inside only, her breathing filled the room. He placed her near the fire. Snow melted around her. Minutes passed. Then suddenly, a low, painful sound came from her throat. Her body tensed. Another sound, stronger. Elias' eyes widened. No, not now. But it was happening. The babies were coming in the middle of a snowstorm. Inside his house, fear gripped him, but estalled. He placed blankets beneath her, kept the fire burning strong. She cried out in pain. Her claws scraped against the floor. Hours felt like minutes. Then the first cub was born. Small, wet, silent. For one terrifying second, no sound. Then a tiny cry. Alive. Relief flooded him. The mother pulled the cub close, cleaned it gently. But it wasn't over. The second cub arrived. Stronger, moving quickly. Then came the third. Smaller. Still. The mother nudged it desperately. Nothing. Elias swallowed his fear. If he touched it, she might attack. If he didn't, it would die. He moved slowly, gently rubbed the tiny cub with a cloth. Once. Twice. Then a sharp cry pierced the room. The cub moved. Alive. The mother looked at him. Not angry, not wild. Grateful. 3 cubs now lay against her chest. Outside, the storm slowly began to calm. Inside, life filled the silence. But the danger was not over. The next morning, footsteps approached the house. Heavy, multiple, hunters. Elias looked through the window. 3 men, rifles in hand. Searching, they knocked loudly. "We're tracking a black panther. Seen anything?" The mother growled softly behind him. The cubs were too small to escape. If the hunters entered, it would end in blood. Elias made a decision. He hid the panther and cubs in a small cellar beneath the floor, covered the hatch with a rug, then opened the door. The hunters pushed for answers, asked about tracks, asked to search. Elias blocked the entrance calmly. "There's nothing here but an old man and a fire." Long silence. Finally they left. But not far. Elias erased tracks in the snow, covered drag marks, destroyed evidence. That night, the hunters returned. Suspicious, one tried to circle the house. Elias stepped outside before they could enter. He stood between them and the door. If they forced their way in, he would fight. The hunters studied him. Then finally, they walked away. Gone. This time, for good. When Elias went back inside, the mother panther approached him slowly. She stood inches away, lowered her head slightly. Acknowledgement. Trust. For the first time, he gently touched her shoulder. She did not pull away. Days passed. The cubs grew stronger. The storm melted away. Sunlight returned to the forest. One morning, she stood near the door. It was time. Elias opened it slowly. Cold air entered, but it felt peaceful now. She picked up the cubs, one by one, carried them outside. Before leaving, she turned. Their eyes met. In that silent moment, everything was understood. He had saved her family. She had saved his heart. She walked into the forest, the cubs following, disappearing into the trees. Weeks later, Elias stepped outside at dusk, and there she was, at the forest's edge. Stronger, her cubs playing nearby. She watched him one last time, then vanished into the wild. Elias stood quietly. He thought he had saved a predator, but in truth, a wild mother had knocked on his door and reminded him he was still human. Sometimes the wild doesn't come to destroy you. Sometimes it comes to test your compassion, and if you open the door, it might just save you too.